To make it short and actually save us some time, I wanted to, we did the intros now with Steffi, nothing better than that, but we want to talk about who owns the future stack. And digital sovereignty is actually a topic that kept me busy for the last 6 years or so. Focusing on sovereign cloud technology, focusing on security. And I always say security and sovereignty are really two sides of the same coin, because you cannot be sovereign if you're not secure, and you cannot be secure if you're not sovereign. So these topics really come together. But now in the age of AI and quantum, I think we're in a very different game. And I'm so honored that Dorit joins me today on stage to actually discuss this topic and to make sure we try to find answers of who owns the future stack, or what is the level of control that we need to own to be sovereign. And so I think without much further ado, I would actually start and give you the control.
Excellent.
And the flow that we have is we have 2 impulses. Dorit will start 5 minutes or so. I will then follow up with my statements, and then we will have a fireside chat to hopefully come to a very positive conclusion. So Dorit, over to you.
Thank you very much. So as Steffi introduced me, I'm an engineer by nature, or a computer scientist, and I like to look at things from the bottom up. So I'll walk you through a journey of how quantum looks today and why it's now to understand if there is anything that needs to be done on control or sovereignty around quantum, and then take it to a bigger perspective, because I grew up in the cybersecurity ecosystem before it was called cyber, and the whole growing up of this ecosystem and a lot of learning that could be done from there. And one could conclude 2 types of answers. One is that you should control everything, and everything should be owned within the country. Maybe it's not realistic, and I'll come with a thesis that it's better to lead with something important so that you could negotiate the rest, and let me go through the reasoning. So why now is the exciting time for quantum? There are many, many reasons, but we are at the stage where we kind of have proven that we have the capability to deal with quantum, to grow quantum computers, and to have significant computing that will solve unsolvable problems. And we have at least one. And that one is to break the modern cryptography. And that creates a nation-state race. This is why one of the reasons that the quantum race will not stop is because there is no other alternative that will get the countries into reading the encryption. And so the same technology that will be used to read the encryption will also be used to positive kind of solutions like finding drugs, etc. So this is really exciting. And we have a really, really deep list of things that we need to do there. We need to increase the number of qubits. We need to properly handle errors. We know to handle them, but we need to handle them in real life, and we need to find the right applications that could take the leverage of the exponential growth. And then we need to look at the future, how we scale it, fabrication, modularizations, and many other aspects. And if we move to the control and access, we could discuss access through the cloud, or we could talk about how a user will access this. Is it a service? Does it require the expertise from the user? You have to figure out that if we had a large enough quantum computer today, and unless we create it to be a very easy access, nobody would be able to leverage it. But if we have good cloud and good accessibility to developers, then we could start to use it. So all of that together, maybe access and usage is the right door, but maybe it doesn't exist without the parts before. Now, I grew up in a public company and in an ecosystem that was very vibrant, but there are things that grow in every ecosystem. And the first thing I want to say, technology is nice, but you are measured by the business success that you have, and therefore go-to-market is usually ending up to be more important. And I'm saying this as a technologist. So until we get all of this to a go-to-market that really works, it doesn't make the impact. The other thing is that it have to solve a real big problem. If it just give you a factor of 5, nobody would use it. They would just buy a bigger computer. And there are many other considerations that one should take, like modularization, open source. What do I own? What do other own? This is part of the discussion on control. So when we go back to sovereignty and control, we have to ask our questions. What does it mean? What do we need to control? What is enabling sovereignty? Is it the infrastructure? In AI, are these the models? In quantum, is this the hardware? Are there other routes? But the reality is that no one could do it all. And go-to-market matters. So if you are a company in Germany and you are selling into Germany, that's very nice. But you have to sell globally, and you have to appear globally to really make an impact. And why is it important to make an impact? Is because then you negotiate the next step of the way. Assuming that you could not own 100% of the story, you have to have the right tools to negotiate the next step of the way, and we will discuss it in our panel. And I'll invite now Wieland to take his kind of a pitch.
Thank you very much, Dorit. Big applause. Thank you. So I will change gears a little bit and wanted to actually address the topic of digital sovereignty from a point of what do we actually need to control, right? And my thesis, my hypothesis is sovereignty is not a choice between innovation and control. It is actually the ability, the capacity to act and decide on your own, right? And that can well include technology that you have not developed yourself. In fact, I would argue it should. And hopefully I can make that point. And I just wanted to preface this by saying that this presentation is based on a report that we have done together with a company called Implement Consult. And the study, we call that study Clearing the Cloud. I have a QR code at the very end that actually leads you to the website to download it. And what I've done actually for this presentation is I uploaded that report into Notebook LM. I actually wrote down my storyline that I wanted to tell you. And then Notebook LM actually presented all these, or prepared all these slides for me, right? And then I did a little bit of fine-tuning with Gemini in Google Slides, but that was pretty much it. And I'm an absolute AI nerd and geek. I use it wherever I can, in every situation. The life around me right now is a big AI use case, and I hope for you as well, because I think the future is changing as we speak at a speed that I, in my 30 years career, have not seen. And so this is super exciting, and I just wanted to say that. But here's sort of the fundamental, right? Innovation and control, I think, in combination is what really what we can really expect from sovereignty. And innovation without control means there's chaos, there's like cyber vulnerability, there's risks that you expose yourself to because you do not have control. But control without innovation means you're stagnating and there's no progress and so on and so forth. There's a lot of resource waste. So I think the key is that you have the innovative power plus the control that keeps you sovereign. And if I look at the opportunity we have, and I'm switching to Europe, to an European perspective for a moment, in the study we found out that 1.2 trillion is the GDP opportunity, the GDP boost from AI adoption in the next decade, right? And that means that we can significantly actually uplift the European economy if we fully embrace AI, if we fully leverage the technology. And in order to do so, we actually don't need to replicate the infrastructure again. In fact, it will actually slow us down if we try to do so, right? And when we look at the opportunity space, where is actually the big opportunity? Most of it is in the application and services domain. So if we use the skills that we have with the German Mittelstand, with all of our engineering capabilities that we have in Europe, and we power that with AI, that combination will actually lift us up. But if we now tell everyone, oh, wait, we're investing in infrastructure ourselves, then, you know, infrastructure is not a service yet. just hardware is not a service yet that our companies here in Europe, here in Germany can use. So I think the important thing is to realize that most of the opportunity is in this different space, not copying the stack. And here you see the rapid increase and the opportunity that we have. Now all this comes with a caveat, right? And that caveat is, if you look at the investment that we're currently doing in Europe, it is 1/10 of that we're doing in the US. 1/10. And it's probably worse because we're starting at different levels, right? And so the question is, what should we do? How can we actually address that? And just in order to build the demand we will have in Europe, this is not catching up. This is just building for the demand we will have in Europe in terms of infrastructure. We need 400 billion. There's calculations out there that we would need 3.6 trillion in order to actually catch up. This is just to meet the demand. But we're actually not even, like if you want to catch up, you need to be faster than the leaders. You can't just do a little bit. In order to catch up, you need to be faster. We're not faster in Europe. So this is important, that we actually double down on these investments. And here's the other catch. We have two options. We can build the European stack and try to actually replicate everything. That will take a lot of time and actually will slow down our economy. Because if we do that, a lot of the innovation that's already available in our hyperscaler stacks will not be accessible to our companies, to our economy. And that risk is about 800 billion. So if we decide to go to European stack, we will actually look at a GDP opportunity of only 400 instead of 1.2 trillion, right? So the call for action is to actually go with what we call the smart stack, which is leveraging infrastructure and innovation that's already available, but putting sovereign controls on top and around it so that we are actually in control. And I said in the beginning, innovation and control is really what sovereignty is. And obviously, we need to put our European values in it. We need to make sure that innovation flows openly. And at Google, we have basically three options for that smart stack depending on your needs. One is what we call data boundary. We basically do encryption. We give the keys to our partners or yourself as a customer, and we don't have access to the data, but you still run on the public cloud. For some, that's not enough. So Google Cloud Dedicated is a separate cloud universe that's actually dedicated to the region. We have one in France, we have one in Germany. We don't have access to these data centers anymore as Google. They're run by a partner, but the technology is actually from us. And then the third one is a private cloud offering, Google Cloud air-gapped, which basically is a rack-mounted offering that companies can put into their private clouds. And again, leverages our technology, completely air-gapped, we don't have access. And we're investing in Europe big time. More than 10 billion, we announced last year in Germany alone, 5 billion, in Belgium, 5.5 billion, and it keeps going, and we already have 13 independent cloud regions here in Europe. And my last slide, my call for action is we need cloud clarity now. We need to understand exactly that trade-off in order to maintain sovereignty and in order to maintain innovation power that we so desperately need. So we need a much more simple market. We need a single market, not a fragmentation in Europe where everyone has different cloud rules. And we need an open market so that everyone can access the world's best technology and make sure that sovereignty is put on top of it. And the QR code that you see here is leading you to that study, Clearing the Cloud, highly recommended. Thank you very much, and now I'm looking forward to...
Very good.
Discussing with Dorit.
Yeah.
And I think I will have the honor of asking the first question to you. And when I looked at everything that you've done, it's really super impressive. And I mean, you know, you are basically part of the success of your company. And now you basically exited and found a VC company,
Yes.
which is pretty bold.
Yeah.
And that VC company is investing exclusively in quantum.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, what does it take today for a quantum startup, or also a deep AI startup maybe, to stay independent, credible, and globally relevant rather than being absorbed by a larger national or corporate stack?
Yes, thank you very much. So yes, I'm proud to had a very long route with many startups. I personally joined 2 startups that ended up doing nice exits in my life. But I also escorted many startups around me in Israel, and most of the cyber ecosystem in Israel was born from people that used to work at Checkpoint in their life. I think that there is basic that has to happen with startups, no matter if they want to stay for the long term or not, but even to just succeed at the basic. They have to be very passionate. They have to understand their problem. They have to understand why this problem is important, and they have to articulate to the world why this problem is important. And that sounds very basic, but even at that, it's not trivial. But if they want to stay independent, the key to that is go to market. And I said it on stage a bit, but I'll articulate more. We as technologists, we love the technology. And we say, oh, we have that great thing. It sells for itself. It's so much better than anyone else. And we also could explain to ourselves why it's much better than the others, except we sometimes don't hear well why they tell us that they didn't buy. That's a selective hearing. And so go-to-market is very important, and global go-to-market. So you have to go outside of your country, outside of your friends, and find nobody that is interested in something like what you do that would consider you. That when he goes to seek the right thing to do, he would be selecting you. Only then you could think about being independent, because otherwise everybody will eat you. But even if this is what you do, you still have the risk to be acquired by a bigger fish. And that's the reality. And that's not necessarily a big failure in the story, or not a reason to kind of not to build up and do excellent. And there is a good story of a grown-up startup that is being acquired by Google, Wiz. It's a very famous story. And they did everything right, and they still be acquired. So I turned to be a VC, because I think quantum is at an inflection point, and it's the right time to invest in it, just before we are all convinced it's there and it's fully priced. And so my way of being VC is to help this ecosystem grow around it.
Wonderful. No, I love it. Yeah.
So now my turn to you,
Yes.
because you spoke about kind of sovereignty and all of that, and here I'm a full day, and then kind of the Bavaria and maybe Germany and Europe as a whole is very busy in building European competitor, if you want, to a Silicon Valley. And the question is, what does such competitor to the Silicon Valley means in terms of technology in your space, probably AI? So what does it needs to do? What are the options of this competitor?
So I think I wouldn't look at this as a competitive situation. I look at this as a huge opportunity for both sides. And if we sort of think a little bit beyond the immediate, we need to catch up on infrastructure kind of situation, and look around and say, what are actually the biggest risks that we are facing as German European companies? Then I think the biggest risk is not to use the sovereign cloud hyperscaler infrastructures that are available today to actually boost the innovation. The biggest risk is not using them. And we're often not thinking about it that way. And then it's actually not a competition. It is, I have the best use cases and applications, and I have the global customer base with my products that I'm developing in Germany. And if I combine that with the best technology out there, but I maintain control, I maintain full sovereignty, that is a beautiful, wonderful story. And I think that is what we need to think much more of to leverage that huge opportunity.
So you are not concerned if the whole like models and LLMs are kind of out of that?
No, I believe that there will be a number of models. There's not going to be just one. And if you are a industrial manufacturer in northern Bavaria focusing on exactly one little thing, but you're fully embracing AI, you don't need a Gemini or an OpenAI model. You actually need a specialized model for exactly that task that you're doing. And you can develop that yourself. You can actually leverage some of the development pipelines that we offer. And that I think is the freedom that you have at that stage.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Wonderful. Then I get to ask you one more question. We have 4 or 5 minutes left. But I was curious which, very related to what you asked me, basically, right? Which layer creates more sovereignty leverage? For example, quantum hardware, control systems, algorithms, and is policy actually focused on the right ones when you look at how policymakers are looking to gain sovereignty?
So I think that right now, policy and quantum is not like working at all like one with the other. Most of the policy and regulation on quantum is around the cyber protection and how to adapt through the encryption, which is a very important route, but has nothing to do with the progress in quantum computers. The other element of quantum computers are it's a nation-state race, deliberate, not just a commercial state, and not just a commercial race. And they are not going to tell us when they end up breaking the encryption. So there is an element of secrecy around what's getting ready. But just like you said in AI, I don't think that we could own everything. So what my thesis is that you should own a big enough piece that will allow you to negotiate the other pieces. And owning this big enough piece is not just what piece it is, but how much you are really an owner. So how much they care if they just scratch you and go to all the others, and that's good enough alternative, or if they need you in the process. Then you'll find out that they give you more fabrication capabilities, they give you more control capabilities, etc. So you have to be a very important part of the chain. I fear that with algorithms, there is always the challenge that algorithms will be public, and it doesn't make sense they won't. So it's a bit hard to control the algorithm layer, but you could control the user's kind of so much easier to use aspect, or you could use kind of the lower levels, but have it important enough that the world cares about your ownership.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you will, you can sort of compare it. If you look at the auto manufacturers, for example, the suppliers are very dependent on the auto manufacturers. If you now look at, if you own use cases that create a lot of revenue, then the infrastructure providers will actually cater to your needs because that's where the business is.
But then comes Musk and he kind of
well, that's
a completely different
That's
car,
a different panel. We only have 2 minutes left.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So what do you think about the cloud? Is the cloud adding to the risk here, or is the cloud adding to the solution?
I think it's an enabler, and it's a necessary enabler for many reasons. A, the efficiency that we have in hyperscaler clouds is way beyond what you can do on-prem. The security that we can implement in hyperscaler clouds is way beyond what you can do on-prem. The energy efficiency that we can do in our clouds is way more than you can do on-prem. And then the agility, the scalability is something that is also not something you can replicate. So if you look at it from those perspectives, you don't want to be actually in those businesses. You don't want to make computers more efficient. You don't want to make security. You're not typically a security company if you're using this technology. So take that for granted and then build on top of it as a big enabler. And then I think to your analogy earlier, this is also actually a bit of a piece of that overall puzzle. If you look into the application and services space, and then I think that is a big enabler.
Even in quantum, it's very important to have the first access to the cloud, because it's not going to be the first thing that I will buy this $20 million computer.
Exactly.
I'm going to try to access it in other ways, and we have to enable this as part of the process.
And it speeds things up so much. If we wait in Europe for us to actually have a similar replicated infrastructure, we will need another 10 years, and we don't have that time. So let's start. Do both, right? Invest in our own infrastructure. Me as a European, as a German, I'm very passionate about this, but also don't miss the opportunity of leveraging what's already available.
And like a security person, there is never full control.
Yes.
So if you want innovation, you have to make it more flexible.
That's right. As I said, the biggest risk is not doing anything. Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. And then we have one ask.
We have,
Yes. Steffi, do you want to join us for a stage selfie? Of course.
Of course.
I love your last sentence.
Yes.
The biggest is not to doing anything.
Exactly. So, okay, we can do one of those. And then we do a stage selfie.
Stage
Okay,
selfie
thank
is the
you.
other side. Yeah.
This is this.
This is this side. Okay, very good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.